We are at the end of a journey. We have 10 master works. Is there a connection to the 10 Commandments? Is there a link? Well, I think there is. God said, I'm going to do it in 10. And we said, when we created the Mesorah Matrix series, we'd like to get to the essence of our faith. We'd like to summarize what Judaism has to teach us and teach the world. And we'll do it with 10 titles. So we are at the end of the road now. This is number 10. Eya Asher Eya was number 9. And the last one is the Shamru. The Shamru being the first word of a major text, we assumed, hopefully correctly, that the readers will recognize the allusion to the day of Shabbat. The Shamru, and they shall observe, the Jewish people shall keep the Shabbat, although it has well been said, more than the Jews have kept the Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jews. Key to Jewish survival, almost certainly, what it is that has created or been a major part of the miracle of Jewish survival, which historians cannot understand. We kept the Shabbos, Shabbos kept us. It is one of the 10 Commandments, number 4. The Shabbat is a major way in which we fulfill the mitzvah of imitating God. Maimonides said, the key to all of Torah is to be like him. The Torah begins where God clothes the naked. It ends with God burying the dead. Everything in between is a definition of divinity. Well, we say, and God rested on the 7th day. And that's Shabbat. 7 is holiness. Do you know why 7 is holiness? In Kabbalah, they teach an amazing concept. We talk about news. The word news, some of you know, is an acronym for North, East, West, South. That's news. Everything that goes on around the world. It would appear from that word that there are 4 directions, but we know that there is also up and down, which gives us 6. So there's north, east, west, south, up, down, 6. And what is the 7th? And what is the number 7? There's one more direction, and it doesn't go that way, or that way, or that way, or that way. It goes this way. 7 is directed internally. 7 is the day of rest for you to stop and say, but who am I? And what's the reason for my existence? And on the 7th day, we are told again, imitate God and rest because God created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day, he rested. Now, there is a remarkable question implicit in that. We talk about the week of creation, and then you tell me that God created the world day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. Human beings were created on day 6 by Yechulu, and they were finished. So what did God do on the 7th day? Nothing, because he was finished. Then it should not be called a week of creation. It should be 6 days of creation, after which the world is ready to go on, to move forward. There's no more creation to be done. So why do we speak of a week of creation? It's the 6 days, and after that, day 7 is no different than day 8 or day 9 or day 10, because God was finished. What did God do on the 7th day that makes it Shabbat? And the rabbis answer intriguingly that God created the day of rest. But if he didn't do anything, he stopped. Then why is that called creation? The answer is profound and extremely relevant for us. Included in creating something is the ability then to perform the last step and to make it stop. To be able to own something or to have created something implies that you are the master. But if you create something which you can no longer control, you've created Frankenstein, who goes off on his own. You have cancer, which has continued growth, but growth ungoverned, which then is a catastrophe. God said, stop, because God wanted to add one more dimension. And I have a name for that. I'm using an English term to describe succinctly what the biblical commentators and theologians said magnificently as the idea behind Shabbat. Shabbat is not rest in the sense of I'm tired now, I've got to stop working. Clearly, because God doesn't get tired, and because God didn't work so hard, he simply said in order to create the world. God didn't rest so we should rest, and learn that after you've done a job, lie down in bed and take a little rest because God was tired and rested. That's absurd. Let me explain to you the concept of creative rest by giving you an illustration. Imagine an artist who stands before a magnificent scene of nature which he is putting on canvas. Paints and paints and paints, busily engaged in work which will create a masterpiece. He's not quite finished yet. And so what does he do? He steps backward and looks at what he has created in order to evaluate. Is he doing something? Is he working, or is he not working? What he is doing is the last act of the creative process. It is the evaluation which allows him to determine whether the potential depiction on that canvas represents what is in his mind as the final product. It is part and parcel of creation, and it is a necessary part of the process. I need to evaluate in order for me to see whether, as the Torah text puts it, Vayar Elokim es kol asher asa v'hinei tov mi'od, and God saw all that he had done, and behold, it is very good. And its message is, after a week of work, stop every week conclusion, seventh day, and ask yourself, is that what you really want? Is that really the fulfillment of your goal? Is that what represents the potential of your achievement in life? What you have to ask yourself is something that is so profound that I have seen in my own life. I'll tell you a story. I had someone in my congregation who became a multimillionaire. Multimillionaire today doesn't even mean much, I guess you have to say. In those days, it was what a billionaire is today. And he had many stores. But he spent no time with his family. His wife was distraught. His children hardly knew him. And they begged me to speak to him and to cut down a little bit on his business because he could well afford it. He had more money than he could ever use, than his children could ever use, and perhaps even his grandchildren. And so I spoke to him. And I said to him, you have all these stores and you have so much money, but your family needs you. Take time. Stop a little bit. He said, I can't because I have all my stores. I have my business that I own. I said to him, but from what you're telling me, you don't own your business. Your business owns you. You don't control it, because if you can't say stop to it, then you are not in control. Then you don't really own it. That's fascinating. He did take that to heart. What every person needs to do once a week is to say, am I working to live or am I living to work? Fascinating, say the rabbis. that the Shabbat day is not Sunday, because that would mean you are resting in order to put in a good week's of work. You are working only so that you could see as your goal the seventh day of creative rest, and then what you do for your body 6 days you're going to do for your soul, where on the seventh day you go to synagogue, you learn Torah, you develop your mind, you feed the soul. What you need to do is to arrange your priorities. The way you can tell whether you are in fact fulfilling your priorities with your work is by one simple determinant. If you so chose to do, are you able to stop your work? Remember the title of that play, Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. It is amazing to me that the world is beginning to recognize that on many levels. We are a technological world, totally consumed by our technology. We may be the best description of having created a monster. Eric Schmidt, Google fame, spoke at a graduation ceremony not too long ago, and he said to the graduates, you have to deal with seeing to it that technology does not consume you, that technology does not destroy you, that you remain you. And I would make the following suggestion, he said. Take a day and shut off all your electronic equipment, your emails, your iPhones, your computers. Take the day to get to know yourself. He did not connect that to the theological, religious equivalent that Judaism has known ever since God declared it at Sinai as the fourth commandment. You must stop, because before you become so absorbed in everything that consumes you, you need time to say, I'm the boss, I'm the me. I do not give you the right to take control of who I am and what I live for. Shabbat is the day in which north, east, west, south, up, down, give way to inner reflection. Shabbat is creative rest. It is the artist in you. And we are back again. Once more, we've done this in every one of these talks, to the crucial philosophic underpinning, for which I thank David Birnbaum, who has directed me in approaching the topics in this manner, the architect of the concept of potential. Because here too, what we are really saying now is that every seventh day of your life, take a look at what you have done during the week and compare it to your potential and your mission. How do they stack up? Is the fulfillment of these 6 days merely a waste of time or a misdirection or going off the right track? Or do they bring me closer to what I really treasure, what I really value? What do you treasure? What do you say to someone like the head of Walmart, who never took the time to go to a graduation of a child, to take his children to a ball game, to have any direct contact, because he simply didn't have time accumulating the billions that would make his family one of, if not the richest family in the world? He was on his deathbed, and he reviewed his life. And his last words, strikingly enough, were, I blew it. Because in reflecting upon what he had achieved, the money is a medium to buy. Money is paper They can let you have more things, but what are the more things that you really want? What are the things that you really need? What is crucial in your life? Well, who asks those questions when you're busy making money? I have no time to think about all these things. I just don't have the time. I'm creating my world. Well, be like God. When God created, what did he do? As part of the act of creation, he stopped. Because if he wouldn't have stopped, that's cancer. That's not creating, that's growth. That's not directed for a sane, healthy end result. And therefore, we have in Judaism a dual category of Shabbat, which even has an addendum. Now, we call Shabbat the seventh day of every week. And as I explained, every day is counted in terms of its relationship to the Shabbat. I said that in a previous talk, but I'd like to elaborate now in context of what we're saying and indicate that counting and saying it's not Sunday, it's Yom Rishon, the Shabbat. First day to the Sabbath, second day to the Sabbath, third day to the Sabbath. Every day only gains meaning in terms of how much closer it brings us to a goal that is directed internally to our neshama, to our souls, to our needs for spirituality, to the purpose that we so desperately seek in terms of our lives, that we have a mission and we want to accomplish something. We want to leave a legacy. We want to be immortal, and we can be immortal via the legacy that we leave and the closer we got to fulfilling our mission. So every Shabbat, we have to stop and evaluate. Once a year, we have a day that every Jew knows. I would say even non-Jews are familiar with it, Yom Kippur. What is Yom Kippur? It's a day of fasting? No, that's not the purpose. A day of introspection? Yes. Do you know what it is called in the Torah? It is called Shabbat Shabbaton, the Sabbath of Sabbaths. In other words, is Shabbat square. If Shabbat is a day of evaluating the week, it is what any sane accountant would tell you in a business. Now evaluate the business and get a clear picture of what your business has accomplished during the year. I had the distinct privilege of speaking before a group, 100 of the major Fortune heads of companies. It was a gathering of titans, that's what they call it, where they meet at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They have lecturers, and lecturers are asked to speak to these people who already own the largest corporations, certainly in America, some of them in the world, and explain to them concepts about business that will help them improve and make their business grow even more. Fascinatingly enough, they made room for one other lecture, and that was not how to grow their business, but how to improve upon their own lives. And I was asked to address them a number of years ago, and I spoke to them in terms that they could understand. And I said to them, every one of you I understand who has a major business has a mission statement. A mission statement about the goal or goals that you hope to achieve. And Google has it, and every other company has a short and succinct statement of what they want to achieve. I said, you have one corporation that exceeds in importance the business that you have, even though it's one of the Fortune 500. What is your most important area of life, you and your family, and what you hope to achieve That is your legacy. That is your mission. Do you have a mission statement for your life together with your loved ones? Create a mission statement. Tell me what you would like to achieve. Tell me what you would like your children to remember. Tell me what you would like your children to become. A mission statement for personal life is something that Jews are asked to do every week. 1 day a week. Shabbat, and then to do it on Yom Kippur. And if you read the Bible carefully, you see that every 7th year, there was a year when people were told not to work their fields. Don't worry, God will provide. You'll manage. Spend a year doing what? You are busy 6 years making a living. In the 7th year, make a life. In the 7th year, that's where the concept of sabbatical comes from. But sabbatical is not simply meant for professors and educators and rabbis. Sabbatical was meant ideally for every person who works, the expression goes, works himself to death. Yes, that's what happens. We work ourselves to death because we're so busy working that before we turn around, we're no longer there. And then what we ask, if we can still ask it, perhaps on our deathbed, is, did I achieve? Did I fulfill my potential? What is your potential? The sum total of your talent and your God-given gifts. What is your potential? What your soul seeks for you to achieve in order to have justified a place here on earth and the years that you lived? Did you fulfill your purpose? Did you live up to your mission? Every 7th day on Shabbat, Jews are to answer that question to themselves. Once a year, to answer it in the presence of God. Every 7 years, to do a review. Why the number 7? Internalize. Enough of news. Enough of the ups and downs of life. Go to who you really are. Become the you that you can be. That is the secret of Judaism that has preserved us throughout the generations.